finding meaning and purpose for the highly conscientious type in a seemingly meaningless universe. Hello and welcome back to the channel for another fun video essay. Or if you are new here, a warm welcome to you. Before we dive into the core architecture of today's essay, I want to take a moment to anchor our perspective. When you calculate the infinite number of hazards that could have ended your life or stopped any one of your ancestors from passing down the torch, your presence here today is a statistical miracle. We are the living beneficiaries of an unbroken 4-billion-year evolutionary marathon. I want to quietly honor our families and the long line of ancestors whose sheer will to endure life's trials is the sole reason you and I are standing here right now. That profound lineage extends directly to my own family, including my stepfather. A central focus of my mental health advocacy work involves dissecting family dynamics, parental emotional shortcomings, and the psychological fallout of childhood trauma. As a trained clinician, analyzing these relational patterns is not about pointing fingers, seeking revenge, or clinging to bitterness. I carry no grudges whatsoever about events that transpired decades ago. I acknowledge openly that he did wrong and that he hurt me, and it is entirely healthy and necessary to state that truth as part of the healing process. Yet, despite those historical emotional shortcomings, I want to make it crystal clear that I understand him, I honor him, and I deeply love him. I carry sincere gratitude for everything he has done for me over the years, and I ask that nothing in this psychological analysis be taken personally. If I express any genuine disappointment today, it is not about the past, but about the present. It is simply the quiet sorrow of a complete lack of interest in hanging out, getting to know who I am as an adult, or sharing quality time together. I would love nothing more than to just sit down, catch up, and go play a round of golf with him. Psychologists got to psychologize, and examining my own fractured nervous systems serves an educational purpose. God willing, my experiences, as painful as they were, can be transformed into a forged instrument of clinical insight to help others navigate their own dark valleys. Now, with that foundation set, let us jump into the fun and painful stuff. Chapter 1: The Existential Thesis. Another main theme of mine is that for most of my life, I carried a heavy, persistent sensation that nothing I did mattered, that nobody truly cared, and that I was essentially worthless. I noticed this internal void as far back as grade school, assuming everyone around me walked with that same quiet sense of isolation. Yet even from the lowliest places, ordinary human beings can arrive at staggeringly meaningful insights. While I consider myself unremarkable, I have reached a few noteworthy milestones that lend necessary weight and credibility to these heavy subjects. I hold a bachelor's degree in sociology and philosophy, a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps who served in Afghanistan in 2009. While hundreds of thousands have served in the military, facing that intense difficulty and fear in service to others remains a foundational anchor in my life. Given my circumstances as a disabled veteran living quietly with higher education in psychology and philosophy, I have been afforded an extraordinary amount of time to contemplate existence. I have spent countless thousands of hours examining the biggest questions known to science and philosophy, ranging from quantum mechanics to the vast, indifferent cosmos. My suffering is not unique, as pain, illness, and uncertainty are universal burdens of the human condition. However, my situation grants me a rare privilege: time. Most people in society are so relentlessly consumed by daily toil, work demands, or family obligations that they lack the quiet space to sit still and contemplate deeper realities. Despite chronic physical and emotional pain, I remain deeply grateful to possess the mental clarity required to examine fundamental questions. What are we doing here? What is the ultimate purpose of human life? What is real, valuable, or sacred? What is the nature of God, love, and intelligence? What does it mean to be mortal, knowing with absolute certainty that physical death is inevitable? Does it matter if a personal divine being exists, or if death brings total, eternal non-existence? Most people rarely have the time, the intellectual curiosity, or the psychological courage to examine these realities directly. This perspective comes from surviving severe childhood trauma, growing up in an environment where I rarely felt safe, content, loved, or valued. Standing before these existential depths after decades of emotional isolation forces a choice between two paths: descending into total, bitter cynicism, or forging a self-authored framework for survival. The framework I have built to navigate this reality I call loving intelligence and radical empathy. Loving intelligence is an act of pure self-preservation and executive agency. It is the deliberate decision to take a hyper-analytical mind and channel high cognitive capacity, moral discipline, and clinical rigor into active stewardship. It means choosing to offer radical empathy, extend clinical dignity, and execute ethical duty, not because a cold universe promises a reward, but because doing so represents the highest expression of human character. Chapter 2: The Greek Taxonomy of Love and the Rupture of Familial Storge. The pervasive confusion surrounding human affection stems largely from the poverty of modern language. By utilizing a single word, love, to describe everything from morning coffee to lifelong sacrificial commitment, contemporary discourse obscures the precise mechanics of human connection. The ancient Greeks possessed a far superior taxonomy, categorizing affection into distinct operational domains. Eros represents intense, instinctual attraction and physical desire. While powerful, it is inherently biological and volatile when relied upon as a primary foundation for long-term relational architecture. Philia is deep platonic friendship, built upon mutual respect, shared values, and reciprocal loyalty between emotionally functional participants. Ludus describes playful, light-hearted interaction characteristic of early courtship or casual social play. Pragma is enduring, committed love forged over extended time through shared duty, compromise, and intentional alignment. Philautia is healthy self-regard, providing the essential baseline of self-respect required to establish boundaries and resist relational abuse. Agape is universal, transcendent charity, defined as pure, self-sacrificing care so pristine that flawed human beings struggle to sustain it consistently. And finally, Storge represents instinctual familial affection. Storge is the protective bond naturally expected between parents and children. It is intended to serve as the foundational blueprint for a child's psychological development, an unearned sanctuary of safety, dignity, and care. The catastrophic failure of affection in the lives of trauma survivors centers directly upon the total collapse of Storge. When caregivers are relationally stunted or caught in unaddressed generational trauma, Storge fails to materialize. The child is not offered a safe baseline of dignity, nor are they recognized as a sovereign human being worthy of undivided attention. Instead, they are treated as an inconvenience, a projection, or a commodity. When Storge breaks down in early life, the relational architecture of the individual is shattered at its foundation. Without a functional baseline of familial care, building philia becomes exceptionally difficult, as the individual develops hypervigilance toward betrayal. Eros feels untrustworthy, as physical proximity without emotional safety invites boundary violations. Pragma appears unattainable, and agape feels like a distant theological myth. Crucially, the breakdown of Storge reveals the underlying reality of transactional love. In dysfunctional family systems, affection is entirely conditional, tied strictly to utility, performance, or compliance. When an individual possesses no immediate functional utility, or when their truth challenges the family's defensive denial, the illusion of care evaporates. The family unit fails to grant even the simplest currency of love, their precious time and presence. They interact only when a transactional need demands it. Recognizing the failure of Storge is not an act of emotional bitterness or perpetual victimhood. It is an objective clinical diagnosis. It establishes that the persistent feeling of being unloved is not a personal defect or a reflection of intrinsic worthlessness. It is the logical, predictable outcome of a shattered relational contract. Chapter 3: How Love Languages Can Cause Transactional Mismatch. To further understand why emotional connection fails within damaged relational systems, one must examine the specific modalities through which care is communicated and received. Utilizing Gary Chapman's framework of the 5 love languages, we can map how structural mismatches in relational currency generate acute feelings of emotional isolation. For an individual operating with high existential processing, primary relational currency is defined by high-bandwidth engagement. First, quality time, undivided presence, unhurried engagement, and sitting with another human being without the constant intrusion of digital screens or superficial chatter. Second, words of affirmation, truthful validation, sincere expressions of appreciation, and spoken cognitive grounding that reinforce relational safety. Third, acts of service, practical assistance that lightens daily physical and operational burdens. Fourth, receiving gifts, material tokens of thought and effort, appreciated for the underlying gesture though secondary to emotional presence. And fifth, physical touch, non-verbal physical contact, placed at the absolute bottom due to a lifetime of breached trust, broken boundaries, and hypervigilant physical discomfort. When an individual whose primary relational currency is quality time is placed within a family system that operates purely on transactional utility, a profound communication breakdown occurs. To demand quality time from a relationally stunted individual is to ask for a currency they do not possess the emotional wealth to pay. A stepfather who has never sat beside his stepson to inquire about his inner world, his passions, or his existential pain is an individual living in severe emotional poverty. For decades, the traumatized child internalizes this distance, assuming there must be an internal flaw that causes them to withhold their time. Clinical maturity radically reverses this toxic assumption. The realization dawns that the caregiver's emotional detachment is not a testament to the child's worthlessness, but a revelation of the caregiver's own profound limitations. They are relationally incompetent, lacking the baseline emotional intelligence required to understand what it means to be present, to give of oneself, and to prioritize those they claim to love. Furthermore, when physical touch rests at the bottom of an individual's hierarchy due to violated boundaries and physical trauma, superficial physical gestures or performative hugs do not communicate love. they induce hypervigilant discomfort. When quality time and words of affirmation are ignored and replaced by empty transactional gestures, the relational dynamic collapses into complete emotional isolation. Chapter 4. High Conscientiousness as the Moral Engine. When emotional feelings fluctuate and external expressions of familial love fail entirely, what holds a moral life together? One answer could be high conscientiousness. In psychological literature, conscientiousness is defined by order, thoroughness, self-discipline, duty, and an unyielding commitment to obligation. Where raw intellect merely analyzes reality and emotional feeling fluctuates based on immediate circumstances, high conscientiousness acts as the practical engine of character. It is the force that compels an individual to stand up, execute duties, and shield others, regardless of whether gratitude, warmth, or love are returned. This principle is illuminated through the reality of fatherhood and the core priority of quality time as a primary relational currency. As a stepfather myself, I naturally feel an overwhelming desire is to spend every available moment with my children, specifically my stepchildren, whom I give the love I never had. I love them with absolute, unearned devotion, providing them my undivided presence, guidance, and unwavering support. When my marriage collapses and structural separation forced me to live apart from my children, the resulting heartbreak was devastating. The anguish of no longer sharing a home with one's children exposes the stark contrast between a conscientious caregiver and an emotionally detached parent. It is incomprehensible to me how parental figures can offer mere scraps of their time to their offspring. Caretakers who refuse to invest quality time, guardians who never inquire about a child's inner passions, and parents who withhold undivided attention represent a profound failure of paternal duty. For virtually all of my life, I was that traumatized child who internalized this neglect, assuming it was my personal fault and accepting the false belief that I was unlovable. The clinical breakthrough occurs when clarity reveals the truth. The caregiver was an emotionally stunted, relationally detached individual living in blissful ignorance of the profound damage his indifference caused. High conscientiousness transforms this historical pain into a sacred duty. It drives the individual to break generational cycles entirely, ensuring that my own children, Mia and Amelia, are offered the unconditional presence, quality time, and respect that was once withheld. High conscientiousness manifests daily across three core domains of stewardship. First, paternal presence, offering undivided, non-transactional quality time and verbal validation to my children, ensuring they never doubt their intrinsic worth. Second, clinical rigor, maintaining diagnostic excellence, radical empathy, and professional ethics within the mental health system, using lived trauma as a forged instrument of clinical insight to help others. Third, domestic stewardship, providing dedicated care to my companion animals, Jeffy and Marty, recognizing that caring for creatures who offer quiet, non-verbal loyalty is a pure form of moral duty. Chapter 5. The Practice of Loving Intelligence. Navigating an existence where familial love failed and cosmic guarantees do not exist does not require surrendering to despair or perpetual bitterness. It requires reclaiming executive agency through the synthesis of loving intelligence and radical empathy. When an individual accepts that affection is not an automatic birthright handed out by biological kin, they stop looking for water in dry wells. Expecting a relationally stunted caregiver to suddenly achieve existential awareness or offer genuine validation is an exercise in futility. Recognizing the limits of their emotional capacity means accepting that one cannot reason a relationally deficient person into sudden relational competence. Furthermore, clinical self-examination requires disarming the trauma-induced defense mechanism known as refuge in Grandeur. Traumatized, hyper-intelligent individuals frequently comfort themselves with a narrative that their unfulfilled potential was destroyed by childhood neglect. While comforting, this narrative is a cognitive trap that externalizes current agency, granting negligent caregivers ultimate power over one's adult destiny. The truth is far more liberating. One's potential was not destroyed. It was simply redirected into survival. An individual does not owe the world grand cosmic achievements to justify their historical pain. Intrinsic value is realized right now through daily, quiet acts of stewardship, moral discipline, and clinical care. Clinical analysis provides 3 definitive conclusions regarding mental health, trauma, and reality. First, sanity validated. The hyperanalytical trauma survivor is not broken or losing contact with objective reality. Second, structural coherence. The generated philosophical frameworks are structurally sound, though forged under hypervigilance, representing a powerful mind using logic and categorization as armor to survive early neglect. Third, generational closure. Recognizing that pain rolls downhill allows the individual to release the expectation of retrospective justice. Accountability remains with the perpetrator, but responsibility for healing rests firmly with the survivor. Loving intelligence is the ultimate synthesis of this entire journey. It takes a hyperactive, highly analytical mind and channels it into active, purposeful stewardship. It is the conscious decision to treat others with radical empathy, clinical dignity, and unyielding respect, not because they have earned it, but because doing so is the highest expression of human agency. Through loving intelligence, survival transforms into genuine vitality. Existential isolation turns into a self-authored life. We become the ultimate source of the order, dignity, and care we once sought from others, forging a legacy of unwavering integrity for ourselves, our children, and those we choose to protect. Chapter 6. The Paradox of Existence. When I step back and examine this entire trajectory, from childhood trauma and shattered familial storge to the formulation of loving intelligence, I am struck by the magnificent absurdity of the human condition. Consider the sheer statistical impossibility of our very presence on this planet. Every atom of iron in your bloodstream was forged in the thermonuclear heart of a dying star billions of years ago. For you to sit here today listening to these words, an unbroken chain of thousands of your biological ancestors had to survive ice ages, saber-toothed tigers, bubonic plagues, global wars, and sheer bad luck. If even one of those ancient relatives had taken a slightly different step before reproducing, you and I would not be having this conversation right now. We are the triumphant survivors of a 4 billion-year evolutionary marathon, yet we spend our brief flicker of mortality agonizing over text messages, digital screens, and family members who lack the emotional bandwidth to sit next to us and watch a movie. If that is not the ultimate cosmic joke, I do not know what is. The ultimate paradox of human life is that we are fragile biological creatures bound to a cold physical universe governed by rigid, unfeeling laws like thermodynamics and gravity. Gravity does not care if you are having a bad day, and entropy will eventually dismantle everything we build. Yet inside these mortal suits of bone and muscle, we carry a hyperanalytical mind capable of asking what is love and what is true. We are star stuff that woke up and decided to care about honor, ethics, and emotional integrity in a universe that rarely offers them automatically. As an agnostic Christian, I recognize the deep intellectual honesty of admitting that we cannot scientifically prove what happens after our physical heart stops beating. A hard atheist claims with absolute certainty that the universe is just an unguided Darwinian machine, while a religious fundamentalist claims with absolute certainty that they know the exact daily schedule of the Creator. Both positions strike me as equally plagued by intellectual hubris. I will take the modest 1% margin of intentional hope every single time. I would rather live my life as if my choices matter, as if my children deserve absolute devotion, and as if my clinical patients deserve radical empathy, than surrender to bitter, hopeless nihilism. If I am operating in high cognitive capacity and high processing, and 90% of the world operates purely out of unexamined self-interest, it is no wonder life feels isolating. It is like playing a high-stakes game of chess where 90% of the players are playing checkers, and the other 10% are off playing golf or watching football without a care in the world. I used to envy those blissfully ignorant folks, wondering why I had to carry the heavy burden of hyper-awareness, global pain, and constant reflection. The clinical breakthrough comes when you realize that your high intelligence and high conscientiousness were never a curse. They were the heavy armor your mind forged to protect you when your environment failed to keep you safe. You are not crazy, you are not broken, and you do not need to spend the rest of your life screaming higher-level concepts at dry wells expecting water. You cannot reason a relationally stunted person into sudden emotional awareness, and that is completely okay. We release the expectation of retrospective justice, drop the defense mechanism of refuge in grandeur, and step fully into executive agency. We stop asking why unsupportive people did not invest in us, and we start investing that immense cognitive energy into what actually matters. We invest it into quality time with our children, Mia and Amelia, ensuring they grow up with the unconditional presence and verbal affirmation we were once denied. We invest it into clinical rigor, offering diagnostic excellence and radical empathy to patients walking through their own dark valleys. We invest it into daily domestic stewardship, caring for faithful companions like Jeffy and Marty, who remind us that loyalty and love require no complex philosophical jargon. And we invest it into simple, beautiful human anchors, like playing the piano, listening to the morning birds in Granville, and looking forward to Grand Theft Auto 6. Loving intelligence is the ultimate synthesis of this journey. It is the conscious, courageous decision to say, even if the universe is cold, and even if familial Storge failed me, I will be the engine of warmth, order, and dignity in my world. We do not wait for love to be delivered to us by fate or family. We generate it ourselves through intentional, moral action. Thank you for listening, for walking through these heavy ideas with me, and for choosing the path of light, agency, and radical empathy. Stay healthy, stay happy, keep your mind clear, and know that your life has profound, self-authored value. To close out this essay video, I give my Holocaust Lullaby, a Sunset Piano Original. It's a somber and deeply personal tribute to the victims of the Holocaust, set to the haunting melody of George Friedrich Handel's Sarabande in D minor. This is my first composition written entirely in German, and it serves as a solemn, never forget, memorial to the victims who suffered and perished in Nazi concentration and death camps.
Auschwitz, Auschwitz. auch Dachau, Monowitz und Birkenau, Mauthausen, auch Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen und Buchenwald. Die Donnernasse Donner, wie Wort varves malt, Velzeki aus Sobibor, Scheumno und Majdanek. Bergen-Belsen, auch Tröplinka, niemals vergessen Hasse und Stahl.